Welcome to episode 199 of Missing Pieces. This is my weekly audio journal podcast where I talk about what I'm up to and what I'm into. And all I can say going into this episode is what happened to this week? Did you ever have one of those weeks where you just feel like it flew by and you have no recollection of anything that occurred during that entire time frame? I kind of feel like that right now. In fact, I feel like I literally just recorded last week's episode, but it turns out that was actually a week ago. Almost. It was 6 days ago. I recorded last week's episode on Saturday, and you wouldn't think that a day would make a difference, right? Like I usually record these Friday mornings, which I'm doing now, and I got to remember to actually include the date in these because I realize that sometimes I'll go back and listen to people's podcasts from a long time ago, and it's nice to know like when this is happening so you have some kind of reference point, I suppose. So today is February 23rd, 2024. 11:19 a.m. It's a Friday. Back on my usual routine last week, and I think I talked about this in last week's episode because I recorded that Saturday, because on Friday of last week, Clark Man was home sick for like the second or third time in 3 weeks, and we had to take him to the doctor that day, and it was just the two of us, so I was like, all right, let's just put the podcast off till tomorrow when Cody's home, and then they can hang out so it's not taking time away from us, because if I get a chance to have my boy home with me, no offense to you, I love you so much, but I don't want to spend an hour with you if I could spend an hour with my Clark Man. And you probably wouldn't want to spend an hour with me if you could spend an hour with Clark Man too. So I think we're all in the same boat there. But anyways, I put that episode off till Saturday morning and everything was cool with that. I was feeling great that day. That was an awesome day. Not because Mrs. Brickitect or Cody or Mrs. Brickitect, as she's known in some circles, I can't remember which way I do it now. Cody or Mrs. Brickitect, as she's known in some circles, she had scheduled a spa day. In fact, it was kind of a bummer because she scheduled this with her BFF, and they were going to go together, but her BFF happens to be pregnant, and there was some procedures that she couldn't get done. Like they get these facials and these wraps and all this stuff that I've been invited to do, but I don't have much interest in. Maybe it would be awesome to be pampered, but I feel like that would be very uncomfortable. I don't know, like taking all your clothes off and getting a massage and things. Like some of you'd be like, dude, I would sign up for that in an instant. Or like getting a facial peel or wrap or whatnot. Getting your skin feeling all soft. I'm trying to speak today. Bear with me as I warm up everything here. It's like going out in the snow and starting your car up if you live in a cold climate. You know, sometimes it needs a little boost to get going. That's where we're at today. So anyways, she was debating whether to go or not. And she's like, well, Autumn's not going to be there. And we usually chat between treatments. And I was like, well, you should still go. Like, obviously she's not going to be there between things, but you can still have that experience. I'll hold down the fort here with Clark Man. In fact, it'd be a lovely day to do a Home Alone with Clark episode, something we haven't done in like the longest time. And I did just that. We had a blast of a day, which I won't spoil too much here for you in this episode because you'll get to see it. I don't think it'll be out before this because I'm a little backed up on editing, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But we did a lot of stuff that day, including building a big Lego set. We built the Disney Icons villains set. And, you know, I just love Lego Disney things that I can get my hands on. And that felt like a good one because I knew we'd have that day and then the next day and then Monday even because it was it President's Day? I think that's what the occasion was, that Clark Man was home that day as well. So I knew we had some extra time. And even Cody was off that day. So 3-day weekend for all. And I was like, this would be cool for all of us to build together because it's like it's a set that's kind of modular, I guess, where multiple people can build separate things and come together. And those are my favorite types of sets when it comes to having a family that builds, because you can all work on things and it's not like relying upon the thing before. So like if you're building a Lego house, for example, it's hard to work on the second story sometimes when the first story isn't built, whereas this is just all comes together. So that was a good selection and will actually turn into a Lego video this week. And I'll talk more about Lego here in a second. Let's talk about let's get Clark Man out of the way. Let's check him off the list, right? I mentioned like we all want to be a part of Clark Man's life. And this week he got into something that I was really excited for him to get into and surprised how well he was doing with it. And that is the world of Pokemon video games. As you may know, and if you watch our Home Alone day, you'll see us playing Mario Kart. And that's something we've been playing for a long time now. And I was wondering, like, when is this dude going to get tired of playing Mario Kart? Because we've been playing it like crazy and I love it. And even like if he's playing by himself, if I sit down here and I go to do something, I don't know about you, but I just can't resist some Mario Kart in my life. So I get a controller and then we start playing, right? I love it. But he said that he wanted to get into Pokemon video games. And I was like, dude, we have a Pokemon video game. It was actually sent to us by our buddy Platty. If you're listening, Platty, thank you for this. I know it's like 3 years late. He sent us a whole pile of Nintendo Switch games. I don't know if he got rid of his Switch, just realized he wasn't playing these ones, but I played a bunch of them throughout time. And there was one that was a duplicate I actually gave away to someone on our Discord server, so it was kind of like paying it forward. And this is like the longest long tail paying it forward ever, because Clarkman came across this game called Pokemon Sword, which, from what I understand, critically is not a good game by any means, but he started playing it and absolutely loves this game. He's a bit of a Pokemon enthusiast these days, as I think many kids in his grade and age level are, and he's just loving it. He's doing like a solo run in it, and he's, collecting his Pokemon, going to these battles, leveling things up, and he talks about it like I put him to bed every night. It's one of my favorite things, and he's like, he always gives me like a rundown of what he needs to do the next day in Pokemon, and it's fun. I every night, and this is kind of a side tangent, but I'll talk about this while I'm here. Every night that I put him to bed, we have like this routine where I take him in, get him all snuggled in. We put his little blankie on there. I turn this night light thing on. He likes this music that plays, and every night that I leave there and I close the door, gosh, no, don't get emotional about this, okay? We're not gonna get emotional here. Turn the video off, guys. Go to the audio version of this. It's available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I sometimes wonder, when's the last time I'm gonna do this? We've talked about last times before, and you always think like, is this the last time I'm gonna, make him cut up his food, for example? Last time I'm gonna feed him. Last time I'm gonna change a diaper. Last time I'm gonna be able to hold his tiny little hand when we're walking down the street, whatever it is. Like, you think about these last times, and I know maybe that day's coming eventually, when you're 15 years old. I don't know if it's customary to have your dad tuck you into bed and stuff, but I'm going to push for it if I can. And, yeah, I guess if anything, what I hope to get across with this is that whatever experience you're having in life, try to soak it in as much as you can, because you never know when it's going to go away. Nothing is guaranteed. We've talked about that too. What haven't I talked about in 198, now 199 episodes? Is there anything left? It turns out there is, especially when you're doing stuff every week. So let's talk about something else that I did last weekend that was kind of a solo thing for me, but kind of a life goal for me as well. And that was to get all of my lighting in the studio switched around. I have all these lights that go into the ceilings, and they're very bright white lights, because this is like my studio, my filming space, right? This is where I do my thing when it comes to Lego. But this is also a place where we hang out, we watch movies, we play video games, all that. And I oftentimes don't want these super bright lights on. I decided that I was going to pony up the cash to install Philips Hue lights, which are smart bulbs. They're kind of expensive, but I got that, and I got this Philips Hue bridge, and then I got this switch that goes on the wall that you can just tap, and all the lights come on throughout the entire place, instead of going around like, as it stands now, if I want to turn all the lights on down here, I have to do it from 3 different locations. No more. All the light switches just stay on. I got a Alexa to control such things. In fact, if I say it now, I don't know, I can't really do it. Can I? If you're watching this, gosh, I might trigger your stuff. Alexa, turn on the lights. Alexa, turn off the lights. How many people's lights just turned on and off right now? You're welcome for that. Alexa, subscribe. Oh, no. No. I was going to say subscribe to Greg's World. You guys might already be there. I don't want it messing my own stuff up. Anyways, that was like a big thing for me, and a little thing I'm obsessed with. One of my things is color temperatures. And I might be one of the only people that's like super into this, but I love having like all of my lights match or to be the right temperature. There's a whole mood that comes from having warm lights. It feels cozy. It feels nice, right? Bright white lights feel energetic, like getting things done, productive. You don't want to have those type of lights in a living room per se. And you don't necessarily want your kitchen to be like relaxing, although it can be. I think ours are kind of yellowish in the kitchen, and that I'm okay with. But lighting is a big deal for me, especially all the lights need to be the same. I've gone places, and I talk about this in my video that I set up, or that I was setting these up, where I was like, I get triggered when I see like a white light and a yellow light beside each other. I'm like, you can't do that. I know that's maybe what you had on hand at the time, but like, don't mix your color temperatures of your lights. In this case, I can change these lights to whatever temperature I want, and I could demonstrate that for you, but I don't want to do any more ALXEA maneuvers. It is kind of cool though. Plays music, all this stuff. I've just entered the 21st century. Last week we were talking about AI videos taking over. I just now have a voice assistant, but I keep calling her by another name, Siri. I keep calling her that when I want her to do things, and I'm trying to like get over that because that's always who I usually talk to, and she's almost worthless. Never understands anything. Voice assistants, first world problems. Can we deal? I don't know, but that was an accomplishment for me to get that set up, and I was excited about it. I made a whole video about it. It was one of those things, and this will kind of segue into the Legos discussion of this week. I was making my vlog. You know, I do these little things where I document my days and what I have going on, and like half deep into that, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to do this Alexa, not Alexa thing, but set up the lights." And I was setting them all up, and then I was like, you know, this is getting pretty in depth. Like when I got it all edited, like fast forwarding to the future, it was like a 20-minute thing. And I was like, this would do much better if I just made it its own video, like setting up Philips Hue bulb, setting up this, you know, showing what it's like to set these things up, my first impressions of it, unboxing, all of that stuff. Essentially, if we're going to narrow this down to what it really is, making a video that's useful to people. As much as maybe you like my vlogs, they're not useful to like a random person that's getting on YouTube that's like, yeah, what are those light bulbs called? I want to see what Philips Hue. Let me search that up. Oh, here's some goofball that's setting them up for the first time. Let's see how much he fails at it. And that's kind of what my video is. Only it turned out really well. So instead of putting that in the middle of my vlog, I pulled that out and it's going to be its own video. And I think and I've talked about this before in one of the 198 episodes that we've done in the past, where I need to maybe do more of that, where if I'm actually doing something of value, like say like cleaning up something I got on an estate sale, make a video that's just about that, as opposed to that being like a little part of a bigger vlog that it's like an acquired taste, something hard to like get into. I do want it to be one of those things where maybe you watch the Philips video, the Philips Hue like setup, then you're like, this guy's kind of funny. What else does he do? Does he make other videos? Oh, they got a whole vlog. Oh, look at his kid. He's so much fun. He loves Pokemon. That's great. I love Pokemon too. And it's like you build relationships through these gateways, I guess is what you'd call it. So that's what I'm kind of working towards. And that's kind of going over to the Lego space too. I've been doing these like Lego journey videos, or these My Week in Lego videos, where for like 5 weeks in a row, I made 30-40-minute videos documenting everything I did in a week. And what I've realized in doing that, I like the format, and it feels cool to make like these big episodes, but it's like hurting me financially and viewership wise, because these videos have like an obscure title, you know, like doing everything in Lego was, I think, last week's. But in that video is almost like 3 or 4 different videos that I could have made out of that were very specific, like building this particular set, how to list and sell Lego on eBay. Like that would have been a handy video for somebody potentially, right? No, it's buried 15 minutes into this video that's documenting my week. So I think I'm going to, contrary to what people want on that channel, I think I'm going to kind of stray away from the long vlog episodes and try to kind of get back into like making useful videos. What a novel concept, you know? In an effort just for new people to find us. I still want to do the thing that I do, and I think there is something very special about being authentic and being you and sharing something more than just setting up light bulbs. As useful as that video is, I'd rather go a little deeper, and that's, you know, this podcast is an example of that. I can make a podcast where we discuss any topic in this world, right? But this topic is about my life and my week, and it isn't easily found. Like this podcast isn't being found on Apple Podcasts randomly by people. This podcast isn't being found on YouTube by people, unless like something strikes someone in the title, maybe. But I don't do any work on the thumbnails. Literally, this is the thumbnail. This might be the thumbnail right now. There, I just made it the thumbnail. I'll never find this timestamp later. I always try to do this kind of stuff, and I'm like, what was I going to title that episode? I say it in the video. I'm like, that's a good title. I'm going to start doing a bounty for someone that listens. I'll be like, hey, if you listen to this right away, just tell me what I was going to title that, and I'll change it from MP 199 to whatever it's going to be. But I think finding, you know, like back to this podcast, as I kind of reiterate my point here, I'm okay with having some content that's super deep and only going to be interesting to people that are interested already and invested in my life or our story. but then I want to have those things that put feelers out there to people. Like there's this example, this guy that he does a thing with his son sometimes or by himself where he just plays Nintendo, and YouTube recommended one of those videos and was like, oh, that's kind of cool, playing Nintendo on an old TV, one of those ones that has the wood paneling around it that sits on the floor, a console TV. And he's playing Nintendo. And I was like, that's kind of cool. But then I realized he does all this other stuff too. And I'm like, well, that was my gateway, right? I don't know who this guy is, but the concept of, hey, do you want to play Nintendo? Yeah, I do actually. Like, let's do that. And it's like, oh, you do vlogs. And then he did like a video where his kid was having a sleepover with his buddy and they were going to try to stay up all night and watch scary movies and stuff. And I was like, this is the content I subscribe for. I would have never found this otherwise, though, right? Because I wasn't searching for that. It was just the YouTube gods brought us together. So it's my job to kind of wrap this point up. It's my job to find a way for the YouTube gods to help new people find us, and to maybe get invested in enough that they want to spend an hour of their week listening to me talk about mine. Like that's I guess the ideal goal. Not that I really get anything from this. I mean, it's encouraging to know that this has a lot of people listening to it, at least in my opinion. Like if we all lined up in an auditorium, it'd be a lot of us there. But I don't. This isn't a financial windfall for me. Although there was, hey, I shouldn't say that. There was a gentleman that signed up to our Patreon last week because of the podcast. And he's like, hey, I get $1.50 a week of value from the podcast. I'm like, dude, that's cool. So I thanked him for joining, and that was nice. And yeah, it's I guess there's those things, but I just do this because I love to do it. That's I think probably the most important reason to do anything in this world, right? Especially if it's something like this. Why would I want to invest time into sitting down and talking about things that I'm not interested in, or I don't feel like have some type of value in the world? And even though this is, to me and maybe to 99.9% of the population, this is just a guy talking about his week. There are some people out there that maybe get something of this, even if it's just me keeping you company for an hour at your job or while you drive to work. I think that's valuable enough, in my opinion, and I think that's good enough. So I'm going to keep going. There might be an episode 200 next week if you play your cards right. Anyways, let's move on to our next topic. I said I went on an editing spree this week. I did. I am like super behind on videos somehow. Like today, I think the Clark's Valentine's Day haul video is coming out. I just recorded it because I was like, oh, let's, he was going off to school and then he came home with all this stuff and he wanted to make a video showing it all off. So I was like, all right, let's do it. And I was like, maybe I'll just make that for patrons only. But then I was like, well, there might be other people that like to watch it. And that's the challenging thing. It's like, when you make exclusive content, I almost feel like I feel bad for the other people, and I feel like the world would want to see this. Then I think about the patrons that signed up and I'm like, did they actually sign up specifically because this thing is exclusive, or was it more of a thing where it's just like, let's support this dude or this family, I guess. And I think that's more likely the case. And I'm sure if I were to ask them like, hey, if I make Clark's Valentine's Day video available to the world, would you have a problem with that? And I guarantee none of them would. So that's kind of where I'm at in that and how I feel about it. But it's that you do have to have some incentives, I guess, for things like that. I just got to find the right balance of it. But we'll talk more about that in listener feedback, because that comes up again. Where was we at here? Editing spree. Yeah, I edited so many videos like that I was behind on, and like I have like 4 or 5 videos. Like I could like disappear for a week and there'd be videos coming out every day, which is a great place to be, right? And I like that. I like having like being ahead. I like editing. I got into this bad habit of like editing videos that I shot like a week ago when it's fresh in your mind and you're like, oh yeah, we did that. We had these shots. Mrs. Brickitect, as she's known in some circles. Oh, she's asking how my day went. Pretty good so far, Mrs. Brickitect. All right. Yeah, we can, we'll get back to her later. She's interrupting the podcast. How dare you? No, if there's anybody that can interrupt this podcast, she's the one. She's the boss, right? You guys that are married, you know the story. You know the drill. So editing, all caught up. I edited, actually, I'm still a little behind, I guess. I didn't record much this week because there wasn't anything quite that interesting happening like early in the week. So I got all caught up from all of last week. In fact, I even got like our Home Alone day caught up, and then I recorded some things the day after that. And it was, I don't know, I just like recording things and documenting, if you can tell. I've done it for a while now, and I don't know, I just love having these memories. And days that I don't record, I have nothing but regrets. I've never regretted filming something and having that documented, even if I don't even make a video out of it, or if it just becomes like a home movie, which I do make just like videos that don't go anywhere. I have regretted times when I just decided not to film. Like, why didn't I film today? I should have filmed something. I should have captured that memory. And that's kind of what I'd like to do in March is like a little experiment is like find that one thing each day and like make that a video. Because I don't know how many people want to see the day-to-day activities. I'm sure there's people for that. In fact, maybe that's the exclusive. You want to see me from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed? There's your exclusive. But here's the coolest thing I did today. Here's the coolest thing that happened today. And I can just record a lot, and then some of it becomes deleted footage, throws away. This is me thinking out loud. We do our best thinking here on the podcast. Some people do their best thinking in the shower. I do my best thinking here, where I just kind of start, going off the dome, spitting out some fly lyrics. No, I wish. So editing, got that checked off. You guys were so curious to hear about that. But later this week, things got interesting because there was another estate sale. This would be my third week in a row going to estate sales with the in-laws. And this one, I wasn't sure what to expect. My mother-in-law said there's not much there, but we'll go check it out. And any adventure, any opportunity to go out with them, I'm down for it. So we drove over. It was maybe like 15 minutes away. And it was this tiny little house. And as we drive up, we see like there's a whole line of people outside. And I'm like, what in the heck? Apparently, because the house is so small, they were only letting a few people in at a time. And by the time we got there, after letting Clarkman, get on the bus and stuff, we got there when it was supposed to start. But obviously, just like yard sales, it started at 8 o'clock. People are there at 6 o'clock. So I was like, dang, I'm out, right? I was going to bail. But then I was like, let me just look at the pictures while I'm standing here in line so I can have an idea. And I saw that they had this Xbox 360, which, like the Nintendo DS Lite that I got the last estate sale, had no place of being there. All these places are like, you could tell they were elderly people. Everything about these places are outdated. All their stuff's pretty old. No, like, I'm not being mean. I'm just pointing out a fact, something obvious. And it was weird because there was a shelf that had an Xbox 360 on it. And I was like, interesting. So as we're going in the garage, I see it on the shelf in there and it says $25. And I was like, I've done better in the past. Like right now I have two Xbox 360s that I bought just this year, or maybe in the last 2 years, that I got one for $10 and one for $5 with games and controllers and everything. This one was $25. I asked the guy, I was like, is that still for sale? He says, yes, we take it over, open it up. It's all complete. Everything's in there. Thing looks, outside of being a little dusty, it looks pretty good. Obviously I didn't test it out or couldn't test it out, but I thought for $25, I'm going to make a snag. So that was pretty much the only thing that I got at this estate sale. It was fun going through. And one of my favorite things about these is just kind of touring people's houses. It's very rare that you get the opportunity to go into other people's dwellings and, see what it's like and walk around and see things, and everything's for sale and you can wheel and deal on things oftentimes. I didn't negotiate this though, because I didn't even realize it was an option because there were so many people like standing in line to come in. I'm like, I just want to get this thing before someone else does. So I got it, and I'm going to, hey, why don't I make a video where I clean it up and test it out? That sounds like a great video. I'll put a little clip of me finding it or getting it at the estate sale, which is a whole video of its own. But then it'll like kind of clip to me cleaning it up and putting the game in and stuff. That would be a video that someone might find. Someone might find it. That'd be cool. Anyways, I need to do it anyway, so why not film it, right? That's kind of like the theory or philosophy of my life. If I'm doing it, I might as well film it. Because why not, right? Maybe somebody wants to watch it. If there's somebody that's willing to watch this podcast or somebody willing to watch me try to start up an Xbox 360. In fact, that's probably a decent audience there too. So we'll do that. I might get into that tomorrow. That'll be fun. Today's kind of booked up. We'll talk about that here in a second while I talk about the other thing that we did yesterday. I had no idea our town had one of these. It was right after the estate sale, but our town has this thing called bins, which I guess is a thing that it's a store. Okay, I'm just going to paint the picture for you here. It's a store that has all these bins inside of it, these big bins that you can look in, full of products. On Saturdays, these bins are completely full of items, and everything in those bins is $7, regardless of what it is. I haven't been there on a Saturday. Maybe there's like some very expensive items in there that you could like snag. It looks like Amazon returns and things like that. But the way it works is Saturday, everything's $7. Sunday, everything's $6. Monday's $5. Tuesday, $4, $3, $2, $1. We went on the $2 day. And there was a few things in there, like the bins were almost empty at this point, but I found a few things that I could flip on eBay and make some money off of. And I thought, dang, I wonder what this is like if you're here on Saturday. I'm sure it's crazy with people like rooting around in there, especially if the bins are full to try to get down to the bottom to find like a Nintendo Switch or something. Like she was saying, even the walls are filled up and they have things like this week they had like protein powder, which you know how expensive that is. It's like $40 or more for a jug of it, $7. When I was there, they had the Bang Energies drinks, and it was like a case of them for $7. And if you've ever been to like a gas station, I think those drinks are like $2 or $3 just for a single. So I mean, there's deals to be had. It's to me, I like it because it's like a treasure hunt. So I'm thinking about going this week. Maybe we'll strap the DJI to my chest, and we'll run through and see what we can find, and just see how wild and crazy it is. But Deb was saying to me when we went out for lunch, I had a quesadilla, by the way. I broke my carbs this week, and we'll talk about that here in a second too. I kind of broke the carb rule, and I got a quesadilla, but it was amazing. It had cheese, black olives, jalapenos, and black beans. Did I say that? It also had their like homemade salsa and sour cream. It was amazing. But I was like, oh, how many carbs are in these quesadillas? And I guess I'll get into my keto update here too. I think I was supposed to get into another topic there. I'm kind of my outline is intact, but I'm jumping around on it. I try to think ahead of time. It's like when you go into battle or you go into a football game, you have a game plan of how you're going to run things, but sometimes the defense in my case is like me just blurting out random things that are a side quest to what I'm talking about, but fits in somewhere else. We've got to like, instead of running the ball, sometimes we've got to throw the ball instead, because it's like, dude, we got a guy standing in the end zone. He's wide open. I'm going to throw the ball to him, and it might be a whole nother topic that's down on the list or before it. But if I miss anything, just know you didn't miss much, right? So let's talk about the keto situation here as we just blast through. Like speaking of football, we're blitzing through this week. I'm still doing keto. To be honest, I am a little disappointed because I didn't feel any different. When I was 100% restricting carbs, spoiler alert, I'm not quite doing that quite as much anymore. I was thinking I'd have like this mental clarity. My whole body would feel different. I'd feel better, different, something. I didn't feel any different. I feel good when I'm eating a McDonald's, greasy, disgusting, well, not delicious food. McDonald's sponsor me. I feel the same after I've eaten that as I felt after being on keto for 10 days. Like it just had no impact on me, no effect. And I imagine if you had health issues or, if you were, say you were addicted to caffeine or something and you decided I'm not going to drink coffee anymore because I put sugar and cream and stuff in there, which I did, but I didn't have addiction to that. I didn't feel any different. It was just like, meh. The weight still coming off. I'm down, let me see, 5.6 pounds. Not coming off as quickly as it was before, but that's because I've been doing a little cheating. Let me tell you about my cheats. We had Chinese for dinner last Friday, which one of those meals I ended up making 3 meals out of. So not terrible, but I was having rice. Obviously their sauce has carbs in it. Cheated. I still lost weight though. Doing that. Doing bad things produces good results. Wonderful. Also this week, my other cheat. I was doing really good, and I've been doing my salads for lunch. I've been doing protein shakes for breakfast in order to cheat on this at dinner time because Cody made brownies this week. I don't know what it is. Like, it feels like as soon as I start doing something like this, she sabotages me. And obviously I can't resist brownie because what her and Clark were doing, Cody and Clark both have a real sweet tooth. I'm more of a salty snacker, but you can't resist a warmed up brownie in the microwave with vanilla ice cream on top of it, melting all over it. You can't resist that. Even if you're on keto, like I dare you to resist it. So we did that a few nights this week. Still though, I'm still losing. I feel like I'm still kind of on track. I'm not really watching carbs as much because I found that, and maybe other keto people can agree to this. We're going to be talking some keto and listener feedback this week, which there was a lot of, but I found myself probably making worse food decisions on keto than if I wasn't. For example, it's like I can't have any carbs, so I'm going to eat a whole bunch of cheese, or I'm going to eat a hot sausage, for example. No carbs, but like lots of fat and grease and stuff. And maybe it's not the best choices, but I just found like meats and cheeses to be my get out of jail free card. And it's like, maybe I shouldn't necessarily be eating those things, and maybe having more balanced, healthier meal that's not so heavy, like a hot sausage for lunch, for example, and peppers and onions, maybe instead just do like a little healthier thing that maybe does have some carbs in it, you know? So I'm not like obsessing over it. I would if I found that in the nearly 2 weeks before I broke, like that Chinese meal was the first thing that I specifically went out of my way to have that I knew would have carbs in it. If I felt like miraculous, like I felt like I was floating in the air or something like that, I'd be like, dude, I got to keep this rolling. But my body being in ketosis or whatever had no actual impact on me as a person other than the weight coming down. But again, I think the weight was coming down because I was now looking at what I was having and being like, that coffee that I drink in the morning where I dump a whole bunch of the creamer in, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. Okay, cut that out. Hey, that little dessert thing that I have, disregard the brownie thing I talked about earlier, but like this little bar thing that I'd have with a cup of milk, that's 26 grams of carbs. That's not worth it. So you got that compounded with I'm now doing 30 minutes every day of elliptical or walking or doing some type of exercise. As I mentioned, one of my goals was this year. I think those things are having a positive impact on me. Just being aware and like having it in your mind that when I eat something, I'm going to look at the nutrition label. And if there's something on there that I deem to not be worth what I'm going to get out of this, then it's not worth it to me. So it's just like anything. It's like you go to this, think of it like a cost. You go to the store and you see an item that you'd really love to have, right? And then you realize that it's way more money than you thought it was when you look at the price tag. And you have to decide, do I want to buy that thing? Or do I just let it sit on the shelf and I find contentment somewhere else, That's kind of what I guess dieting is. So that's where I'm at on keto, just watching the carbs still, and I'll keep reporting back on my weight loss journey here. I'd love to lose 13 pounds. That would be like super ultra lean. Like you might look at me and be like, Greg, I don't think you need to lose any weight, but I just want to be like, I want my BMI to be like pristine. So yeah, that's where I'm at on that. Anyways, that's like pretty much my whole week as far as I can tell from my outline as I jumped around on it. I covered the keto thing, obviously. I covered getting caught up on editing, some things with the Clark man, what he's into, Pokemon, getting my lights set up. We got it all covered, but now we need to cover what you guys had to say from last week. This is listener feedback, starting with Clay Turtle, who's also a Patreon detector. He says, last week's title was... I'm a dweller, which I am. I think any type of analytical person is, oftentimes introverted people. Taking a quick drink here, Clay Turtle, if you don't mind. He says, I get being a dweller. I'm one myself. Hard to move on from something that I had gotten in my way. I'm one of the few that voted for daily Brick Tech videos, but I'll admit I was wrong. I enjoy the weekly better. It might be weekly, but it won't be a 40-minute weekly. We'll see what I can come up with. He says, my favorite book that I've read or listened to on Audible is The Stand. Might not be up your alley, but makes you really think what could happen. Is that Stephen King? I'm going to have to look that up. He says, keto would be very hard for me. I eat eggs and toast for breakfast a lot. Glad to see you trying to better yourself. Thanks again for getting me through another early Monday morning at work. Hey, you could do keto, just drop the toast. Might sound painful, but you could just still do the eggs and all of a sudden your carbs are out the window there, baby. But, here's my thoughts. If that piece of toast brings you joy on your Monday morning before you go into work, before you turn on Missing Pieces, before you've had like any type of joy in your life, if that's making you happy and you look forward to it, keep doing it, right? I say keep going. Thank you for the comment and the support. Next one comes from Ashley. It says, happy Sunday. I love the idea of sending a photo. He's referring to one of the Patreon perks we have. This sounds like an advertisement. It's not. But we take these I was going to say Polaroid. They're Fuji Instax photos. And then when someone joins Patreon, I send them a thank you note, which I need to go back to the first 11 people. I have that number in my mind. I didn't have thank you cards then, so I sent it like in an envelope, and I want it to be like special. So I might be taking some more photos. It encourages me. But she says, loves the idea of sending a photo. I donated to a cause for a girl on YouTube, and she sent a cookbook with her family's Christmas photo and a short handwritten thank you. There you go. That's what I do. Only it's not a Christmas photo. It says, it meant a lot, and I'm sure most people would enjoy that. I'm glad Clark is feeling better. My mom had something going on a few weeks ago, but tested negative for flu and COVID. She ended up going to the ER because her cough was so bad, and she was having a hard time breathing. All tests came back normal, and she's feeling better now. mystery disease. As far as the keto diet, I've tried everything out there, not really sticking with anything, but I think it's really everything in moderation. This is kind of what I'm learning. When you think about it, most clean whole foods are naturally low in carbs. Cody, or Mrs. Brickatect, as she's known in some circles, we have a survivor here with us, has taught me a lot with her videos, and I'm trying to focus on clean eating as well. Calories in versus calories out seems to be what it's all about. Also, thank you for buying that shovel. We were in the 5 to 8 range and only got a dusting as well. Have a great week. There you go. How about that? Cody's channel. Oh boy, she did that for a little bit, but it's just like most people with that I encourage or try to start a YouTube channel. If you don't have like a passion for consistency and doing that, especially if you have another job, like going back to school, and that's like a whole thing within itself, dude, I get it. I have no life. That's why I'm able to do this. Like you right now, when you're listening to this, possibly you're doing something productive. You're making money. You're at your job. You're exercising. Maybe you're playing Minecraft. I don't know. I'm going to consider that productive because you're producing joy. I'm literally just sitting here on a Friday morning recording a podcast, which I love. I wouldn't have it any other way, my friends. Thank you for tuning in and giving me a reason. It would be hard if there was nobody here. Hard to justify. And it'd be easier to cheat on myself too, because the easiest person to let down is yourself. And if there was nobody listening to this, I'd be like, well, this week wasn't that interesting. Sure, I spent a lot of time editing and I went to that estate sale. Clark and I were home, but it's not really worth discussing or talking about. I'll just save this for next week. And then next week comes. This is how your YouTube channel dies. And you're like, took last week off. Why don't I'll start again on the first of the month. I'll come back then. Then it's the first of the year. It's the first of the decade. You never came back. You make a video then saying you're going to come back and then you don't. I've seen it a million times. I've seen it. Anyways, that's a side tangent. Thank you for the comment, Ashley. Next one comes from B. Moyer. Says, best of luck to you on your keto journey. This feels like I feel bad now because I had Chinese food in that quesadilla and those brownies. I still lost though. I'm type 2 diabetic. You would not want to do the brownies and ice cream. And along with my change in medications, I started eating very low carb and keto. Anything I eat with carbs is keto friendly. I lost 75 pounds in just over a year and my health is much improved. Congratulations on that. That's impressive. I find many great keto alternative recipes on Instagram and social media. Lots of keto food available in stores, but it's not consistent with what's available store to store. Yeah, we got a recommendation for keto ice cream last time. That's what I should have had. Can Cody make keto brownies? And do keto brownies with keto ice cream taste good enough to be passable? Like, for example, I stopped drinking soda entirely. I do drink Zevia. To me, and this is an acquired taste, Zevia I like just as much. For me, it's more about the carbonation and like having that experience than it is about the actual flavor. Does Coca-Cola or Pepsi taste better than Cola Zevia? Absolutely. Can I get away with it for 0 sugars and 0 carbs and 0 calories? Absolutely. So I'm a Zevia guy, and it's like my little treat here and there. I'm sure it's bad for you too, but as far as I can tell, it's better than the alternative. Thank you for the comment. Next one comes from Padawan Alex. It says, hey, Greg, thanks for a great episode. I don't know if I'd go that far, but an episode. He says, in terms of the whole keto and carb counting process, you've been doing what I thought you've been doing. I thought I'd give my perspective. I have type 1 diabetes, which is the type with no cause of diagnosis. Anywho, how it works is I have to be exact how many carbs I eat in each meal. And through the years of having the disease, I've noticed how much people are unaware of the carb count things. Facts, my man. I try to keep, maybe my girl, Alex could be a guy or a girl. I try to keep to a low carb diet because it's easier to manage and I feel way better most meals without carbs. See, this is an example where you on the keto diet feel fantastic. You start eating carbs, bad things. I don't know. Maybe my body's just like, I don't care what you do. Just, Dad, give me what I want. Also, there are a lot more foods without carbs than most people think. Anyway, that really wasn't related. I just thought I'd share my experience with carbs. Very much related. I think so. On a completely unrelated note, I love unrelated notes. He says, I recently came across a 70% completed Bugatti Chiron from a thrift shop for $30. If you don't know what that is, that blurry thing right below that blurry blue light back there is my Bugatti, one of my favorite Lego Technic sets. And he got it for $30. It's a $350 set, maybe $400 these days with Lego inflation. He says, I bought it and purchased all the missing pieces, pun intended, from Bricklink. I imagined in my head this elaborate story, some guy who started the build of the set, then realized the extreme pain building Technic can sometimes be and gave up. Anyway, thanks again for the awesome episode and have a good week. Dude, I find yard sale stuff like that. There were several Lego Chima sets that we got last year where bag one had been opened and like the minifig builder or whatever, like the pieces were all there, but bags two through whatever, untouched. So it was like a sign like this kid like starts something and then moves on. I don't know why he did that multiple times. I don't know why parents would allow you to continue buying stuff, but I could totally see it with the Bugatti. Like that thing, like I built it a bag a week, which was fine and doable. But if you don't have much experience in Lego, you've never built Technic before, and you're like, I'm just going to try this out. And then you're like, oh my God. I was worried about that with my nephew when he bought his first Lego set, like ever. And he decided he was going to make it the Ford GT, which is a big Lego Technic set. He loved it. He built it in like 2 days and like was infatuated with it. But I could definitely see someone getting that set, feeling overwhelmed and being like, you know what? I'm out. Their loss, your gain, my friend. $30 for that is like, that's a yard sale score. I hope you're able to get it complete. We'll have to keep track of you on the updates there, whether it's complete now or not, or if you're working on it. That'll be pretty cool to see. I'm also curious if you can come back. Where is it all still in bags, or like you had loose pieces? Obviously, you had some loose pieces because you had to part some of it together. But gosh, if I just found that whole set in a box with like thousands of Technic parts, that would be a nightmare to try to build. Because with the bags, at the very least, when you build it and you're done with the bag, you're like, okay, no pieces left over. Good news, I did it right. Whereas if you just start building it out using pieces you have in a box or a bag, and then you get to the end and you're like, okay, let's try turning the wheels, and then the thing falls apart, you're like, oh shoot, I must have not put that piece on. Those missing pieces, they always get you, pun intended. But what a score. That got me excited a little bit, if you couldn't tell. Sometimes Lego can do that to you, you know. It's natural from what I hear. Next one comes from Emmett. He says, wow. I'm going to cut that whole part out. He says, hey, Greg, first time commenting, long time watcher. I've been watching since Clark was 3, so it's crazy to see how fast he's growing. Dude. He says also about AI, it's crazy how fast it's processing. What's going to move faster, Clarkman growing or AI growing? I feel like AI might be overtaking him. I've been eating healthier recently. It's hard to eat while I'm out at dinner, but it's worth it. When I get older, my dream is to open up my own farm and have a bunch of horses and other animals. Wish the best to you and your family. Keep up the great content. I love your dream. Your dream is my dream. I agree with you about eating out. I've been very careful, like that quesadilla that I got. I was going to get a salad, but then my mother-in-law was like, the quesadilla is really good. I was like, okay, I'll do it. Sacrifice the carbs for that. But I got a water. I didn't get anything else. That was my whole lunch. And I didn't have any breakfast that day, okay? So like I'm justifying it. Sometimes you have to justify it. I appreciate the comment though. This next one, oh goodness, this one, I'm going to throw this one out to you guys. This is from Easy's Bricks. He says, I have a question. How do you overcome or deal with insecurities? I'm not going to get into specifics, but I was just wondering how you overcome insecurities and how I can overcome my insecurities. Thanks again for another great podcast. Gosh, I don't think I'm qualified to answer that, man. I'm just a guy that shares his life on the internet and builds Lego sets and oogles over them and makes a podcast every week. I don't know how I can help you overcome your insecurities, but thinking of my own life, you know, it's like sometimes you feel self-conscious about things. Let's give an example. Let's say you want to lose 13 pounds so you could go to the beach and be your best self, you know, this summer. And say that didn't happen, or say right now you had to go take your shirt off, you know, and you're just like, oh gosh, I feel so crappy. I look flabby. I'm worthless, whatever. The truth is, no one cares about you. And that's going to sound harsh, but it's the reality. Most people only care about themselves. Most people are obsessed with themselves. When you go to the beach, they might see you, but unless you're like really creating a scene, you're just another person. You're just somebody. Whereas they're in their own head, they're thinking like, oh, how do I look in my swimsuit? What am I going to do today? Am I going to eat those carbs for dinner tonight? Like people are just, you know, you're absorbed in your own life, and for good reason, because that's your world, right? Like everything that happens to you. And you oftentimes don't have time to worry about other people. I think about this. I had a speech class in college, and I did not want to do a speech in front of anyone, right? Like I'm not that guy. I can sit here and do this podcast. I'm looking at a camera right now. It might seem like I'm looking at you, and maybe there's hundreds of others of us that are here. But I feel way more comfortable doing this than if we had a convention where we're all lined up like the auditorium I was talking about earlier, and I walk in and you're all sitting there staring at me. I, I'd literally sweat into a puddle on the floor. I'd be like the T-1000 in Terminator 2 as he slithers away. Not in a cool way either. But the truth is, when you give that speech, and this is how I felt about it and how I was able to kind of make it work, I thought, all these people are in the same boat as me. And I feel when I think of someone going up there and giving a speech, I feel nothing but compassion for them because I know I'm going to have to do it too. And how would I want that person to treat me? And like, am I criticizing them? No. Why would I? This is a hard thing to do. This is like the most fearful thing that any human can do is like public speaking, right? Supposedly. And I felt compassion for them. And you have to assume that when you're up there, they feel the same for you. Are people going to judge you? Yes, that's what people do. People judge you no matter what. It's hard not to. When I watch people's videos, you judge anything, like because you're observing and you judge. But there's a difference between judging and being critical or cynical, and I try not to be those things, even though it's sometimes difficult. So I guess my advice to you, in a place where I have no business giving advice, is to just remember that you don't matter to other people. And that's, boy, what terrible advice, Greg. You don't matter to other people. Now the guy's going to be depressed. No, don't be depressed by that. Think of it in terms of like your insecurities. Whatever you're feeling, other people aren't even going to notice or care. That's where I'll leave it. That was probably the worst way that I could give him that advice. But again, I'm not a psychiatrist or a motivational speaker. I just play one on the internet. That's about it. All right, let's go to the next one from Witty Doggo. It says, oh my God, OMG. I'm giving him a voice. I literally got goosebumps when you mentioned the book, The Giver. That is my favorite book. The movie was terrible. We're not going to give you that voice anymore. I don't think that works for you. He says, no offense to Jeff Bridges and all the other actors, but the book was so darn good. I modified this because we've got young ears, Witty Doggo. Says, I highly recommend reading it, especially if you're someone who likes dystopian science fiction novels. The Giver is a good book. Anyway, I hope all is well with you and your family. That includes Roxy Bear, Mellow Cat, and the Chickions. He didn't say Chickions, but he meant it. I really want to thank you for making my day with your videos. Oh gosh, should I read this part? I hesitate. There's another one of these too. The feel-good comments of the week. Let's throw them out there. It says, your humble and positive attitude really inspires me to appreciate life. Also, your terrible advice. He says, believe it or not, there are people in this world who need a little positivity in their lives because all the mayhem that surrounds them. Do those same people take advice that says that no one cares about you? Because I don't know if that, boy, I don't know, guys. Anywho's, I am so glad that I escaped from all of that just by watching your channels on YouTube. I consider your content as down to earth. It's a perfect escape for those who have been oppressed, or those who are lonely, or those who are sad, and those who just like watching a guy named Greg who records his life with an action cam. I do that. I can make that happen. He says, oh gosh, Greg, you're awesome. Keep staying positive, and please keep on doing what you're doing. You never know who you may inspire. This is just making me feel even worse about telling the guy that no one cares about him. Just know that was in good faith, okay? But I appreciate that. And that's this is the reason that this podcast happens, right? Just like we were talking about earlier. Maybe somebody, you never know. Next one comes from Vanishing. Or should we, let's read Tracy's. The Tracy's follows that. And I'm like, do I put these in here? The feel-good comments of the week. Tracy says, as you were talking about how you run your YouTube channels and why you don't think you will retire, I realized one of the reasons I find your channels refreshing. One, you can't read. She says, two, you're satisfied with what you have. And I add all kinds of things into your comments. I hope you guys don't mind. You are satisfied with what you have. And while you do work towards growth, you're not seeking fame. Rather, you seek to be creative, cultivate community, have stability, share and document your life. In a world of people who are never happy with what they have and with trends of hustle culture, it's so nice to see someone who is satisfied with what he has achieved while still striving to be the best he can. Thank you for being an example that you don't have to reach riches and fame to have joy. Sweet comment that is. Thank you, Tracy. You guys are too much, man. I appreciate it. I hesitate to put those in here, but if it's nice to have some peeps in your corner, and I mean that. That's really sweet. I'm not going to get emotional, I swear. Next one. That makes me feel good, though. Next one comes from Vanishing. It says, hey, Greg, back at it again with commenting. Sorry I was gone while I got caught up with a lot of school and family medical issues. Everyone is okay now. So some different questions and topics for next week is, what would your dream car be if money was no object? Okay, I'll start with that. What was my dream car be? I'm going to say something that I could go camping in, probably like some type of RV that we could all just go traveling in. I don't really have use for a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, as cool as it'd be to maybe try one of those out. But if I had one of those cars though, the it would be one of those things that would cause me nothing but worry. I'd be worried about it getting scratched or dented, or I'd always have to have it clean, and all these things would have to be perfect with it. And it would become more of like a curse than a gift if I had a really nice car. Whereas an RV would be great because then we could just go camping in it, we could take it traveling, do all these things that I want to do in the world, and it'd be awesome. So I'd rather, if someone said money's no object, pick a car, I'd go pick like a Winnebago or something like that. I don't know if that's cheating or not, but like for a normal car, I guess just something that gets good gas mileage and has a lot of storage space in it doesn't mean what I choose. I don't know. I'm an old dude now, right? 16-year-old Greg is gonna be like, yeah, I'll take a Porsche 911. That's what I would do. But when you get to be an old dude, you're like, well, what's the insurance gonna be on that Lambo? That Countach insurance is gonna be crazy, right? But it's like, oh, how much is it on a Subaru Forester? Oh, it's all-wheel drive. Excellent. Has a hatchback where I can put my yard sale scores. Even better. That blue color, chef's kiss. Anyways, I'm living my dream. I think so. I mean, you can, like Tracy was saying, like you can dream for bigger things. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just pretty darn happy with what I got. The only thing that I want in this world, and that I'm like working towards and saving for, is like that dream property that I have where it's just like some nice land, put my in-laws in a place on it somewhere, and I have all my animals, and they bring me happiness, and I share that with the world. That's all I want, right? That's all I want. You can keep your dream car. Give me some goats and a little potbelly pig. That's what I really want. Oh, okay. Next question. What kind of software do you use to record the podcast? I'm still trying to figure out mine. And I know a few years back, you guys got sent a Lionel Express train that I recently watched a video of yours where you said you'd like to get into the hobby model trains. I cannot recommend it enough. It's definitely fun putting Legos on my model railway along with other stuff I've gotten over the years. And then he goes into scales. Okay, I'm going to address your question about what I record with. Blue Yeti microphone. This is not a professional setup. Blue Yeti microphone plugged into my computer, and and you don't need anything as fancy as this. I have a Sony a6400 with a Sigma 16mm lens that gets you this glorious image. I've shown before what it looks like when you use a webcam. Not nearly as good, but this is a podcast. I could look like a puddle. I could look like that person that went up to give a speech and turned into a puddle on the floor, T1000 style. And it doesn't take away from what this is. Audio quality is the most important thing. And again, this isn't even the most expensive microphone, not anywhere near it. I considered upgrading to that. There's like a $400 microphone, but I'm like, for what I do, talking about my week each week, I've never had one person ever say, man, that sounded terrible. I have messed up before. I've used the wrong microphone. Sometimes settings get weird, so maybe this will sound like crap, but it's good enough. It serves my purpose. So if you're trying to get started making a podcast, you know what I would do, to be completely honest with you? Just record it with your iPhone. Just set your iPhone up and sit there with it close nearby and just talk to it, or your Android, whatever you're using, and make that work. And then when you get to a certain point, set a goal for yourself. I love goals. It's what my life is based on. And like say, if I do 10 episodes, I'm gonna do 25 episodes or something like that. I'm gonna get a webcam and I'm gonna get a $50 microphone. And if I get to 50 episodes, I'm gonna get the $100 microphone. And like set those little challenges, because then you have some motivation. Most people that start things don't finish things though. What are the 2 rules? Say it with me. Show up and be consistent. People fail at both of those things in major ways. So that's my unsolicited advice in that. I feel like that's advice I can give. Overcoming your insecurities, that's way outside my pay grade. As for trains, Lego train is where I'm going. I kind of mulled around getting into a model train, but it's like I do all this Lego stuff, and if I can build my own train cars and like set up my own little train world, that's the direction. That's the direction for me, but I appreciate the advice. He says, excited to see what episode 200 will bring. And that's kind of what this last comment here is. From Jay's Hobby Reviews says, "Hey Greg, with episode 200 around the corner, anything special for that podcast? Time really does fly. I can't believe I started back in the early 50s during the dark ages of the pandemic. Anything planned for the next milestone?" By the way, from last week's comment, both the commercials and Gamer Boring Super Bowl, a lot of your older Greg's World videos are recommended on my YouTube. Kind of cool to look back a few years ago. Agreed. That's why I love making them. Episode 200, we got a couple people that are like, this is a milestone. I don't know. I don't have anything planned. My old saying, every day is special. Every episode is special, even if it is just as simple as you talking about your week, which is what next week's episode will be. What can make it special, though, if anyone survived this long, is give me something that you'd like me to discuss. What can we turn it into? If you have some ideas for a 200th episode, we could get into it. I'm not even going to throw any ideas out here because I want to hear what you guys have to say. It's my easy way of coming up with something great without having to think of it. Maybe I can do my week, and then you guys, give me some things that you would like me to discuss. It could be, remembering the past. It could be a discussion of this podcast. I told you I wasn't going to give you ideas, but in the end, 200 is just a number. 201, does that podcast, is it not as special because it doesn't have a nice even round number like 200? In fact, this isn't even episode 200 because I did Good Morning Brick Detectors before this, or Good Morning World. I have all kinds of podcasts that I did that just never, it was before this started. But ultimately, this is what I enjoy. Episode 200 will come. Episode 200 will go. Episode 300, most likely, Lord willing, if I'm still alive, I'll still be podcasting. This is something I look forward to every week. And again, it's very much encouraged because I know there's people who look forward to this, and I don't want to let people down. In fact, I'd like to do the opposite. I'd like to give you something to look forward to. So when I hear from you guys in these messages, which there were a lot last week, I didn't even read all of them. I tried to cover ones that I thought would be helpful for people, except for the ones that are just like, Greg, you're the greatest human being to ever exist on the earth. And I'm like, tell me more. No. I try to cover ones that I think could be helpful for people. That insecurity one tripped me up, though. I'll be honest with you. That was tough. A lot easier to answer, what's your dream car? And then I give you a Winnebago as the answer. Jeez Louise. Anyways, that is this week's episode. Didn't quite hit an hour, but it was the week that flew by. So hopefully this episode flew by for you in the time that you were listening to it and all the things that you were doing. If it was an hour of work, hope it went fast. If it was an hour of your break, hope it didn't go fast. But regardless, we'll be back next week with episode 200. So thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, we'll find you in the next Missing Pieces.